Take two. The first one, I forgot to press record. So anyway, guys, I hope it's audible. Let me just take out. Nah, it's okay. So good morning, morning. This is morning for me here. I'm in the office. I just got here, and so guys, remember I am not in the financial sector. So take anything I say from as a lesson from my experience, from my knowledge, from my networks that I've made, as a comment for growth. And I hope that I contribute and positively and give you guys value. So one thing that I want to try out is, because I have a lot of inboxes and I am very frugal with my time, because there's so much on my table, not because I don't value people. I appreciate people when they choose me to help them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and answer some of the questions in my inboxes some of the time through it's our channel, right? Yeah, it's ours. Please don't ever think that it is mine. Oh yeah, I keep this because it's a gift from my mom. But anyway, yes. So I have an inbox from a great gentleman. I will not be sharing personal details of my audience. I think I prefer it that way. Okay. So let's read. It says, Dumela hle ausi. Firstly, let me just pick up the phone. Okay. Dumela hle ausi. Firstly, okay, that is for me. It's an apology. I'm called Ausmalatelo. I'm pretty young. I think lightly works. I'm still fresh and hype and happening. His name, and he stays in Gauteng, the eastern parts. He says he needs my help or advice. He says he's going to be very honest. He doesn't have, he's just explaining himself. And yes. So here's the background. He says, please note, I'm currently still a beginner and still doing my research regarding properties. Ausmo, that sounds sexy. As a beginner, would 200,000 be enough? As a starter who is looking into buying a house that's already a mess but wants to renovate it and sell it, or build the room kokasi and hire them out, right? According to you, which way would you go for? Okay, and yes, I replied. I said, it is not a straightforward answer. It's called a flip, and I will cover it on this channel instead of typing it. So let's have a mini conversation, and I pray that I do not confuse you in the process. So I want us to talk about a flip at first, right? Because I love flips. Flipping is the process whereby, in the lamest terms, you take an old house and which is bought below value. So that is the major part. It has to be bought below value. How do you study if a house is below value, right? I think I have not spoken about it on the channel, but one day, hopefully we'll get to it. But let's have a chat a bit about it. I want us to think about when we buy our houses, we have to do a comparative analysis of what houses are selling for in that particular area, in that market, right? So that's the first thing that you are going to do. And very importantly is to compare apples with apples, right? You're trying to find houses that have a similar square meter. Let's say they have 3-bed, 2-bath. If the interest or the house that you're trying to flip is of 2-bed, 3-bed, 2-bath. You're also trying to understand what is in the locality, right? You know, you can stay in the same neighborhood, and weirdly enough, that 5 kilometers from the same neighborhood, if I can put it like that, you have houses that are selling far less. So you have to be very particular about the area, right? So how do you do a comparative analysis? The most, I think, not the cheapest, but I think the easiest way, one of the ways you can do it is that if you look at Property 24, it normally gives you reports that tell you about the sales that have happened in the area, right? Recent sales, and it will tell you this is the house that sold, this is the meter square, this is the arrangement, how it's arranged. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath. So that's a great start. Then you start seeing the trend, right? One of the things that you're also interested in that you should take note of when you go through that process is to understand, oh, this might take a bit more effort, but is to understand how long did it take to sell those houses that you're comparing to, right? Because with flipping, it means in most cases, that's if you're not doing the BRR strategy, which means you're keeping to refinance and actually use the equity. In short, one day we'll have a talk about that as well. But let's go back to the flip. You want to understand that how long will you have it in your possession after fixing it, right? So that's the beauty of a flip. So with flip, the next thing that is very important to consider, we call it a numbers game. It's due diligence, part of the process. You want to understand what you're buying, right? How much are you buying it for, right? And always use the figure that it's provided to you before negotiation. Please don't use what you think you want to pay for the property. If you get to negotiate, which you should, and you get the price that is comfortable for you, that's great. But I always advise that use the amount that is listed already so that you start from a point of facts to reduce errors when you're calculating your profit margins, because that's the whole point of collecting those data, right? A flip is about capital. You want to source capital. It's a capital cash flow kind of strategy. Then the next thing that you would normally do with the process, where are we? Oh, we're looking at how can we find out information about the market value. One thing that you can also do is that you could actually go and look at the property itself on some of the municipal records, which will be lower. I don't like that one because it's used for different reasons, but you can look at that. You can also go to systems such as Lighthouse. I think FNB also has a housing management tool, as well as Standard Bank. I think those are the few that I would use. And you can actually look at how much they would normally give you a range, how much they are valuing the house for. In most cases, from my experience, is that that value is not necessarily reflective of what is on the ground. What do I mean? It might be that the house is in a dilapidated state, and the bank, when it views it views it from an eyesight of it is well maintained, it is in a good position, it stands. So it will give you approximately how much it will actually sell for if it's in a great condition. So now you have two values. You have a value, right? A market value, and a market value that gives you how much it's going to sell. You've used the comparative analysis through your Property 24, property something, I forgot the other one of the blue markings. You've got your Lightstone, you've got Standard Bank, you've got FNB, you've got you've got so many sources, right? The next process that you want to do is have a great team, because you want to fix this house. So if you're fixing this house, it means you need to have a great team. People that understand that the flipping process is one of the greatest contributors in the process is a great project management team, right? Time and efficient usage of resources is great. Sometimes cheap is expensive. Sometimes cheap helps you to actually build your own team. So it's a sweet and sour advice. Get people that know what they are doing. because if they don't, the problem is it will actually end up being a mess, and you might end up paying more than you should for the flip because you would have to fix it. That's loss of time, loss of resources. Your material will be wasted in most cases, and you'll be frustrated. So that affects your health as well. Then the next thing is understand the associated costs that are involved with flipping. So with flipping, you need to understand that if you're buying something, there's transfer costs, right? If you're selling something, there's also costs associated with the sale transaction. Like if you're buying, you understand that with me, I would have a fee for a property inspector. I would have a fee for a what else? Obviously, the conveyancing and the transfer toning as well. What else would I have? Oh, yeah. The other thing you need to understand is that you need a cash flow for the actual renovation, right? Depending on how you structured it, right? If you're using the conventional process of buying through the bank, that's what would happen unless it's a cash transaction or it's an installment sales transaction. So the process might be slightly different depending on which system you're using or which vehicle you're using to buy the house. Then the next process would be the flipping, the fixing of the property. Please be very sure when you do your numbers, because it's crazy how much a profitable project can be a nightmare, especially because some things you do not see them up until you're actually in the process of flipping, right? What is the worst flipping I've ever had? It's one of the houses. It's somewhere in Gauteng, obviously, because that's my area. The pipelines were in a state of dire because I took the easy way out. Luckily, I wasn't alone on this one. But yeah, I think that's a cost that we didn't include. Luckily, the profit margins were healthy, but you know, I always try to view things from a worst case type of scenario. So yeah. The other thing is it's not a bad thing to have a coach or friends that are in the same investment space, property investing, to review your numbers for you, right? And refrain from making your own quotations or assumptions of what you think it will cost you. Get a team to actually go on site and tell you how much they are approximating, but do not take the approximation as cast in stone. I always put a variance of plus minus 10%. Sometimes it doesn't work out, it goes beyond what that. And sometimes it's money that's put back into the pocket. I forgot what it's called. And then in any business, remember you've also got operational costs. What do I mean by operational costs? It's also called holding costs. Holding costs are the fees that are associated with holding the property. You know, you have to pay levies, you have to pay tax and rates, you have to pay insurance if it's not levies, if it's a full title. Sometimes it's a full title and an estate, either way. Like there are costs that are associated. Then there'll be electricity to run the place in the interim. Some of them you might need security because in most cases you might find that the building is hijacked. So you need people that would actually help you keep the place secure while you work on it, right? So there's a few things that you should include in that calculation that you'll be considering. Then, as I said, there's the closing costs, right? If you're using an estate agent to sell the property for you, consider their, is it profits or I forget what it's called. It's not really profits, but they get a fee, right? Consider their fee. And if you have obviously then also consider if you're going to sell it afterwards, also consider that you might need certificates such as COCs and things like that, regulatory compliance certificates. And also if you're flipping and you're changing the I don't want to say layout per se, but you're changing the house drastically, like making additions, please ensure that you have your structures in place, your architectural designs, because Spluma is very adamant on that you need updated, you need to update them, or when a person is going to buy that, they might negotiate the price even lower, saying that they are taking the risk and would actually have to ensure approval of that extension or structure. So guys, as I've previously said, I normally try and speak things from my head up. There might be things that I might have forgotten. So if you have any questions, any additions, anything that I could learn from you as well, you're welcome to make comments in the comment section. Anyway, guys, have a lovely day. Thank you.